Okay, team, this is the second video in my virtual class offering. We've got, so far we've established that we can extract from the HMI. We were able to download to it because we saw that my page name changed here. So we extracted the database that's running on here by default. So now we're going to move forward with this, and now our next step is we want to see if we can set this HMI up to talk to our PLC. Now, what I'm using in the class for a PLC, I'm actually using another HMI, so let me add another tab here. And if I change this one to port number 97, I believe, we're going to get to this RTU14 thing, I call it. And this unit is going to mimic acting like 8 PLCs is what it actually does. And you can see here that we've got a number of tanks on here. And if I click the main button here, we get some temperature readings here. So if I reset everything back to about the 50th percentile, you can see the numbers change and so forth. So this is going to act as our PLC, and ironically, it's going to use Modbus communications to talk to it. So we're going to set up our Redline HMI to see if we can establish communications to this thing over ModbusTCP. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to communications on the left. This is that database that I extracted. And we are, let's see if I get my pointer tool to work. We're going to click on protocol number 1 here. By the way, this, since we extracted the program, you can see that there's some stuff under protocol 4. I'm going to collapse that tree and pretend it's not even there. I don't pretend that's not even there. Just ignore that for now. We go to protocol 1 here. We want to set up this HMI to talk ModbusTCP to the PLC. So over here, if we hit the pick button right here, and it brings up a listing of all the different drivers that we have available. I'll just quickly go through a few of these. You can see we've got Allen Bradley here. We can talk to all the Allen Bradley PLCs, old Slicks, Micrologics, all the way up to the Control Logics, RS Logix 5000 stuff in here. We also have the Micro 800 driver here for those that use that series of PLCs. So if I keep going down here amongst this list of things, when I get down to Modbus, if I click here on the Modbus, I'm going to set up the HMI here to be a TCP IP master. So I'm going to click on the TCP IP master here and click the OK button. Now if you notice, team, right away, all of a sudden I get this PLC1 that drops here. Now, we're going to change the name of this to, in this case, we're going to call this RTU14. RTU_14. And the reason I picked that name, just coincidentally, is because the web page for that guy is coming up as RTU14. I also have that name listed because, let me make this a little bigger so we can all see it. Let's see if it fills in here. It should scale here in a second. Maybe not. There we go. So I need to know what the IP address is of the PLC. So down here on my local network, on this screen, I have this function called getNetIP, and here it says the IP address of this screen happens to be 192.168.254.14, or this PLC. This is mimicking a PLC. So I've got that IP address there. So what that means is in Crimson, right here, team, I'm going to put in that number. So I'll change this to 192.168.254.14. Apparently that's what my router assigns here. And normally, if you were doing this over Modbus, you would normally use port 502. Now, because I'm cheating and I'm using this same HMI to mimic a PLC, I'm going to share this with 8 to 10 different virtual students, and the Redline product will support up to 4 devices on a particular port when it's acting as a slave. So if I go to the Excel spreadsheet, this is what I was using in the first video. Here's the Excel spreadsheet, and I usually share this with every student. We're going to interact down here, team, with tank number 1. So I'm going to click on tank number 1, this tab down here, and this will bring me to all the registers or the values that we want to look at tank number 1. Now, what I'm trying to do to establish communications is I want to see if I can get the temperature value from tank number 1 to show up on my HMI. Now on this spreadsheet here, you're going to notice that I've listed that this guy is going to use ModbusTCP port number 505. Okay? So, given that that's listed here, I'm going to go back to Crimson, and I'm going to change this port number right here from 502, which is the ModbusTCP standard. I'm going to change it to 505, because that's how that guy's set up. So, everything else in here, if I take the slider bar here, slide all the way down, I don't need to make any changes to this. Most of the times, the default setting will work. So this, in my opinion, is correct from here. So I'm going to go over to the left side now and click on DataTags on the left side. Now, because we're starting with this default database that you extracted from the unit, you can see here, team, that you have a bunch of tags already in here. Now, the only reason I've listed these tags here is to make sure that everybody's using the same names. All of these tags are blue. They're not allocated to anything right now. They're all internal tags. That's why they're blue. I just have preset this up in the database so that everybody has the tags named the same. That's all I've done here. So if I click on this first one on top, temp F, make that the focal point here, that means that everything that's in this zone of Crimson in the center is focused on that particular tag. We give you the name here, and of course over here it'll sometimes be highlighted based on that one. So if I switch to another one, you see it changes on top there. Switch to another one, this changes here. So I'm going to go temp F, and I want to map this to that PLC. So I'm going to go back to my spreadsheet that has my data table of all of where my tags are mapped, and I want you to notice something. All of the tags that we'll be interacting with are mapped into the holding registers here in Modbus. So you don't have to be a Modbus guru here, but I can tell you that everything here is in the holding register, and I'll show you what that means here in a second. But I want you to notice number here, the number is 40,100. I want you to notice that it's an integer type. It's supposed to be read-only, and the format type is going to go from 0 to 1,000, but we want to display this as 0 to 100.0. Okay? So for now, I'm just going to remember this number 40,100. Go back to Crimson. I'm going to hit the pull down right here where it says source. Go down there, and I'll click on that RTU14 right there. And I'm going to click on the holding registers right here. This is the top, the 40,000 series. They call this in the Modbus. This is the 40,000 series holding registers. They're typically read-write. You have the 3,000, which are analog inputs. They're read-only registers. And then you have the 0,000 series, they call these. Those are typically the bits, output coils, if you will. And then you have the 1,000 series registers that are digital inputs. And then we also have these L4 down here. This is a special flavor of Modbus called Enron Modbus that does L4 registers. You can sometimes use this with products, just depends on what you're talking to. But everything we're going to do in this class will focus on the top 4 holding registers right here. Now, I call this the 40,000 series because if you look over here, team, there's a very small 4 here, and then there's like this number right here. So you can think about that 4 plus whatever number is in this field. So I want to change this to number 100 here. You have 2 options you can do. You can delete and put in 100, or you can delete the whole thing and just do it like that, and it'll take the 100. Also, since I'm doing this as an integer, I'm going to leave this type right here as word. That's going to bring in one whole 16-bit register as a word. We'll get to these others here in a little bit, but for now we'll leave this as a word. That's the default. You can see some min-max here and so forth. I'll click the OK button here, and now you can see that there's that number 40,100 or 400,100, but that some products will call that 40,100. We actually add a little 4 in front, but anyway, that's what we're doing there. Now, if you notice, the tag has turned red right now. That's because by default, our driver will set that up as read and write. Well, this is a temperature input, and according to the spreadsheet, it's supposed to be access read-only. So I'm going to change this pull down where it says access, change this to read-only, and notice when I did that, team, that immediately the X over here went from being red to green. So a green tag indicates that it's a read-only tag. Red was what it was before. That was read and write, but it's going to be an input temperature-wise, so we're going to make it green, read-only. And then, of course, before all this, it was blue, indicating it was an internal tag. So that looks good to me. One more thing here is down here, you see how this data simulation here is? you can use this field to mimic what a tag should look like on the screen when you download to it, or what in the programming environment here in Crimson, to what it looks like on the screen. Now, we'll get to the real screen download, but that 555 is set up as data simulation. If I change this number to, say, 777, I'll just do that. I'll put 777 there. Now the next step, I want to see if we can talk to this PLC. So I'm going to go over here to the left and click on Display Pages on the left. Over here on the left, I'll click on Display Pages. Again, this is the extracted program that we took out of that screen, the same one I share with all my students. And you're going to see that on this extracted database, there are some pre-built pages that have things. Like this one here is the default. There's an all tanks page, which we'll get to later in the class. You've got some raw tags, data here, and stuff. These got some pre-built graphics here. We're going to start off with a clean slate. So I'm going to click this button right here that will insert a new page. Maybe. There we go. Or you can also right-click anywhere out here, team, and you can do a new page that way. That also inserts a new page. But anyway, I've got this blank page 2 here. And because we don't have a table of contents, normally the way Redline operates is whatever page is on top is the default. So I'm going to drag that page to it's on top here so that it's the default page when we go to download. Now, because I use this fancy, really cool arrow tool, you can see, team, that doesn't show up very good on a black background display page. So anywhere out here in the display page, I'm going to right-click and go to the word Properties. Right-click anywhere out here and go to Properties. And I want to change the background color here to, say, a light gray. So I'll hit the pull down right here where it's got the black color, and I'll just pick one of these light gray colors right here, and I'll click the OK button. So now I've got a palette, and if I use my arrow tool, you can see it. Okay. Now, we want to see if we can get this temperature value on the screen. So I'm going to go over here to the right side of Crimson and click Data Tags on the right side. Over here on the right side, I'll click Data Tags. I will take a second here to point out that you do notice you have data tags on the left and you have data tags on the right. You might also be keen to point out that you've got a program section over here on the left and you got a programs on the right. The way I keep track of the two sides, besides left and right, or navigation pane and resource pane, the left side of Crimson is where you create or invent new things. The right side is where you go to drag it out and use those things. So in this case, I'm over here on the right side of Crimson, and I'm going to grab this tag temp F, and I'm simply going to drag and drop it down here into the lower left-hand corner of my screen. Now, if you notice, it's, in my opinion, really small. If you're using a mouse with a roller bar, you can roll in and out, zoom in and out. If you're using what I call the booger pad on your laptop, this button right here will do the exact same thing. You can click here, and that'll zoom in and out as well. But what I really want to do, team, is I want to make this, the font of this thing, bigger, and I want to bold it. So I'm going to take my mouse, and I'm going to click anywhere else on the screen. I call this my losing focus. So I'm just clicking here, I lost focus, everything. Then, if I just hover over this, hover over to where I get like a blue border, and I'm about the halfway point, not directly in the center, but on one half of it. If I click one time, this magic ghosted window of icons comes up, and this button right here, team, will make the font much bigger. Boom, 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 boom. I'll go ahead and hit that as many times as possible. And this button right here will bold it. I'll go ahead and bold it so you can kind of see it bold. Now, if I click away, lose focus, I see I get the hazard signs. The hazard signs mean that I just made everything inside the box bigger than the original. So I'll click on it again, I'll grab a corner, and I'll make this guy be a little bigger like that. Okay? All right, so that looks good to me. I think I'm almost ready to test this. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and save my program. Now I'm going to save this as a different name. So I'll hit the File pull down, Save As. And I'll save it here. This is the extracted. Click on this one, and I'll call this one my temp F for this session. You know what? Maybe I'll call it video number 2, because this is number 2 in the series. I'll change the name of the one. So this is video number 2. I'll hit save. This is a wonderful time to talk about this. I discuss this in every class. This pops up, and unfortunately everybody thinks by default they just click yes and run on. But normally, team, most of us today, or 99% of us, are just making changes to an existing database. So this database identifier comes up. What it says is, hey, if you download a file with a new identifier, it will clear any logs or persistent data from the target memory and the memory card installed, and it basically is going to say it's a brand new program. It's going to wipe out all your set points. It's going to wipe out all your recipes. It's going to create new data logs. Most of us anymore, we're just making changes to an existing database. So 99% of the time, you can't go wrong by clicking no to this. If you click yes, then you got some other issues. So I always say, click no to that team and you'll be fine. Okay? So that looks good. Now let's go ahead and see if we can download this to our screen. And I'm going to double check here. I'm going to go to the link pull down. Every class, I like to make sure that everybody has a checkbox on the support upload. What that means is when you go to download to the screen, if that was checked when you downloaded, that means the next guy comes along. Theoretically, they should be able to click extract, and they can siphon out the exact program that's actually running in that screen. So I like to make sure that support upload is checked all the time. And I'm going to go down here to options and make sure that I'm using TCP IP, since you're going to do this over the web, not locally connected via USB. I'll just click USB real quick. I want to show you something. This happens all the time in my virtual classes or my online classes. By default, it's set like that. So if I go to click download here, you can see Crimson barked at me. Said, wait a minute, we have a problem. It says unable to open communication port. Now, if you look at it long enough in the window, it gives you a little hint of what the problem is. It's trying to download over USB. Well, we're clearly not connected over USB. So we'll take that nice suggestion, click the close button, and we'll go to the link pull down again and click on options once again. And we're going to check the TCP IP connection. The slow link, you don't have to have that checked, but that's if you're going over a cell modem or something. I think it makes the packets longer for timeout. But I'm going to click the OK button, and you can see this pops up. It says, hey, the target address for TCP IP download is configured from the download tab. Okay, let me show you what that means. I'll click the OK button. If I go over here to the left and click on communications, and if I click on the word network right here, this is from the first video, we did a little bit on this, on the word network. If you click the download tab here, you can see that we're already set up to download to port 791, and there is today the IP address of the router at my office. So this should be okay. One thing you don't want to change in here, you do not want to change, besides don't change these two numbers, leave those alone. But on the Ethernet tab, you can see that this HMI on my office network is configured as DHCP. If I make this a fixed IP address, something like that, when I go to download to it, it's going to take on that IP address, and then what's going to happen is my router at the office is no longer going to be able to talk to this. So we always want to make this, for my example, set this guy up as DHCP. Some of you in the plant, you'll have a fixed IP address, but in this case, since we're doing this over the web, we're going to leave it as DHCP, which means my router assigns an address to this, and we should be good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the update button here. We'll let it download. All right, so it downloaded to the screen. Now if I go back to my web browser, that's that guy right there. If I click the Wazoo's tab, which is looking at this particular port 91, if I click remote view, look, I have a number on the screen here. You see that right there? This leads to another discussion. In the default view of Crimson, you can see that we've got this border on here and so forth. I like this other mode that Crimson has, so let me go back to the web server real quick. I'm going to go over here to the left, and I'm going to click on the web server. Down here, click on the web server. And if you click on the Features tab, click on the Features tab right here. On the Features tab, two things we need to change. Since we're going to do this class completely online, we need to have complete remote control over the web. So where it says Remote Control Disabled, hit the pull down there, and we're going to choose Enable. That will allow you to control it over the web, just as if you're in front of the HMI touching on it. That'll let you do it over the web page. And then the other thing I really like here in Crimson 3.1 is the ability to scale the size of your screen to this bare displayed scaled. I really like this because it fills in completely and full. And then later on in this class, we're going to play with the data logger. So let's go ahead and turn on data log access, even though we're not doing anything with it right now, but we'll get that in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and, I like to do this too periodically, team. I like to save my program, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit this button, which is what I call the Shazam or update button, this little lightning bolt, and we'll go ahead and download this changes to it. Okay, we'll go back to the web browser. Now, you're going to see this X here as it's resetting. It should come back up here. Let's see what it does here. Now, notice right now, team, I've got this border on here. Nothing's really changed. In order for me to get the session to update, I'm going to hit the back arrow in my browser, go back here, and then I'm going to hit this refresh button right here. I'm going to reload the web page from there. Wow, look. Now I have a category could view logs, which I didn't have before, but now it's on. That's good. Now if I click the remote view, look. It fills in the whole page, and this is what I really like about this when I'm teaching a virtual class, is if I make this a floating window, I can make this guy smaller like so, and when I'm teaching 6 or 8 students virtually, I end up putting all of their sessions on the screen like this, and eventually this will load, and we'll show our number. It should load up. There you go. Okay, so to me, right now, pretty cool. I've established that we're definitely talking to the PLC because I have this number showing up right here. But I'm missing a decimal point, and I also want to add a degree F as in Fahrenheit symbol. So I'm going to go back to Crimson, and I'm going to go to Data Tags on the left. Go to Data Tags on the left. That way I can click on the temp F that I'm interacting with. So here I am on temp F, and team, I'm going to click on the Format tab right here. Click on the Format tab, and on the Format tab, I want to give this thing some decimal points and so forth. So I'm going to hit the pick button right here where it says General. Hit the pick button here, and I'm going to declare a numeric type. The reason I'm selecting the numeric type is when I click the OK button, that gives me access to digits before and after the decimal point. Now, hold on a second. I'm going to leave this alone and go back to Crimson, or back to my Excel spreadsheet. Look at temp F, that's this whole line right here. It's supposed to go between 0 and 1,000, so put that in your back pocket, remember that. But I want it to display as 0.0 to 100.0. So if you look at 100.0, that is 1, 0, 0, 3 digits before and 1 after here, okay? So I'm going to go back to Crimson, and I'm going to put in my minimum value here is going to be 0, enter. And my maximum number right here is going to be 1,000, enter. Always hit enter when you type usually. However, I want this to show up as 100.0, so I'm going to change the digits before the decimal point from 5 to 3, boom. And I'm going to add 1 decimal point here and put in a 1 right there, boom. Okay. Now, I'm going to grab this slider bar here and slide down a little further, because you see down here where it says units? Well, I want this to have a F as in Fahrenheit for units. So I can put my cursor here and do a capital F, and that'll give a Fahrenheit. Or if you want to get really fancy, you can put your mouse before the F, and you can hold down the Alt key, and if your laptop or keyboard has a 10 key, while holding down the Alt key, Alt, A-L-T, you can put in number 0176, let go of the Alt key, and that'll add that little degree symbol. Getting really fancy here. Now, I'm going to click on Display Pages over here on the left. Notice it says 777 on this page here. The minute I take my mouse and click here in Crimson, I'm in the Crimson programming, this should update. Watch, 1, 2, 3, boom. There it is. Now, a lot of times in students when we're doing this, when we've added that, they can see that, oh, it's a little bit too small. So I want to go ahead and do it like that. Now this 777 number, remember that 777, that came from at the data tag level on the data tab right down here where it says simulate as. If I put in a different number, say 555, for instance, hit enter, go back to display pages. Once I click here, it'll update. Watch, 1, 2, 3, boom. Now that's just simulate as. The real screen, though, is what's running on this web browser here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Shazam button right here. Boom. Let it update. We'll get the web browser up while we're doing that. There you go. And let's see if this guy updates. Perfect. Now I got the degree. I got a decimal point. That looks awesome. Looks great to me. Now, If I was talking to one of the other PLCs, what do I mean by PLCs? Well, if I go over here to my spreadsheet, I got tank 2, tank 3, so forth. As I go through these different tanks, I want you to notice that the only thing that really changes is whether it's the 100 series registers. Look, this is tank 1. Everything's in the 100 series. Whoops. If I click tank 2, it's the 200 series and so forth. I'm going to go here to tank 5, and I'll tell you why I'm picking on tank 5. Tank 5 is a little bit different. It has TCP port number 506, and it's going to be looking at temperature number this 500 register. Let me show you something. I'm going to try to talk to that guy. So if I go back to Crimson, I'm simply going to go to Communications on the left. I'm going to click on this RTU 14, and I'm going to change this guy right here to port number 506 in this case. Okay, so that looks good. I'm going to go to DataTags on the left, and according to the spreadsheet, look, that temperature value is supposed to be mapped to register number 500. Okay, so that works. So I'm going to just I'm going to go ahead and change this number right here, hit the pick button here, and I'm going to change this 100 here to a 500. Okay, so that looks good to me. Let's test it and let's see what happens. Now, before I test, I'll just prove it's still looking good right here. We're looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Shazam button. There we go. Let's see what it does here. All right, very interesting. Something different. Now, this one gives the dashed lines. Now, that's when we're doing communications, testing comms to a PLC or something. The dashed lines means either the IP address is wrong, the cable's made wrong if we're doing the serially, maybe we got the pinouts wrong, the baud rate could be wrong, so forth. Well, in this case, it's all over Ethernet. We know the IP address is correct, but this is dashed lines. So you might scratch your head and go, wonder what could it be? Well, the problem is that at port 506, we don't have a ping holding register at what they call the 40,001 number. They do here, according to this document, it says 500. So let me show you what that means. In Crimson, if I go to Communications on the left, and right here, team, most products, most normal products, will have something at 40,001 holding register. Usually they will. Well, every now and then you'll find some weird product that doesn't have anything there, and you kind of scratch your head and go, why isn't it talking? Well, it's because this here is something that our driver does behind the scenes to check to see if that device is there. So if I change this number to 500, again, notice the word holding register. That means that's a 40,000. If I put that number there as 500, which is the same ironic register as the temp F, let's download this and see what happens. Notice the dashed lines. Let's see if we get a value now. Bada bing, we sure do, team. And you know what? I want to prove something else here. If I go look at my simulator, this is the tank value here. So if I manually just click on this and put that guy up there, it's at 81 here. If I go back to the web browser, well, that's tank 4. Sorry, this one here. This is tank 5 right here. Now if I go back and look here, there we go. That's that value right there. If I change it down here to something low like that, and you can see it change. So good. So that's working good. Now, one more thing I'll tell you about the ping holding register. Go back here to Communications. If you put a 0 in here, this should also work, and that'll turn off that feature completely. But sometimes you may not want to do that because you might use functions like isDeviceOnline and so forth. So it kind of circumvents that feature that you can use. But you could also put a 0 and then it turns it in, or turns it off. Anyway, I'm going to do this, team. I'm going to go back and put this back to 1. I'm going to change this back to number 505 because I want to focus on tank number 1 for this application. And that means back here, data tags. I'm going to change this back to number 100. I'll hit save and download it. And let's see if we get back to our tank number 1 here, temperature value. Perfect. Okay. So at this juncture, I'm fully convinced that we've set up communications to our PLC because we have a tag reading on the screen. It's a valid tag. Even if we had 0 right now, if I disconnected the PLC, this would go to dash lines and timeout. But the PLC is on the side of my desk, so I can't reach them here. But anyway, I've established here the communication works good, so that's good enough for this video. We'll go next and do a little bit of graphics with this in the next one, but that's good for this one. Anyway, that's it. Thanks.